change. David is a professional technology writer and editor, as well as the creator of several WordPress plugins, including the one we use to organize our agenda. He's claiming time on tonight's speaking schedule to demonstrate the new and improved version of the role sign-up and agenda management functions, now mostly debugged. These improvements required him to learn some of the same user interface technologies employed in web apps like Facebook and Trello, and he hopes you will see the benefits. Please welcome Toastmaster David Carr, the new way of organizing our agenda.
Thank you, Kim. No, I apologize to anybody who feels like they're in reruns here, because a bunch of you have seen some version of this before, but it's getting better, it's getting slicker, it's getting wonderful, and I want to share it with the world. I certainly want you guys to be productive in using these tools to organize your participation in our club, or if you're in a club leader, to organize a meeting that you are in charge of as an officer or just as Toastmaster of the day. So I'm going to take you on a little tour, and I've asked for 8 to 10 minutes to talk, followed by a couple of minutes for Q&A. And I'll show you this on a couple of different websites. I have a demo site over here where this is set up, and the actual agenda sign up or role sign up functions aren't going to look all that different, except you might notice that these things happen a little bit faster. When I take a role, it immediately appears on the agenda. When I withdraw from the role, it immediately disappears from the agenda. And we do have this active on the Online Presenters website. So some of you have been getting used to it, or at least hopefully getting used to it over the last couple of weeks. Kim contacted me at one point and said there's no way to edit the word of the day or the theme for the meeting. So there was a way, but the button was in a different spot. So I put a button back underneath the word of the day. So these are the organizing blocks of our agenda. So if I click on edit here, it will take us over to the word of the day in this editor mode. There's also this series of little buttons along the bottom of the screen. They say sign up, edit, suggest. Now, suggest is where I'm nominating somebody for a role. I'm not assigning it to them. I'm not locking it in on the agenda, but I'm saying I think you'd be good for this, and trying to make it easy for them to agree. And let me show you what that looks like. So I'll nominate Abraham Lincoln that he ought to give a speech. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong site. I'm on the real site. Let me do it on my demo site so that I'm not causing rampant confusion as much as I sometimes do. I'll pick this person actually and say, I'm nominating you from a role. And when I do that, I don't know whether you can see, but when I choose somebody off the agenda, I can see when they last did the role. So I can see when they last spoke. Actually, it hasn't been that long ago for this person. Maybe I'll pick somebody who hasn't spoken since October. So I say, you haven't done this lately. And I will send them off a note. And I get a little preview down here of what that would look like. Actually, I have a version of this open in my Gmail. So it comes in, I'm nominating you for a role. It can have a personalized note so that you're reaching out specifically to that person, and they can click. And this, with one click, without them even necessarily being logged in, will say, I've recognized you, let's sign you up, and we can confirm that we're going to take that role. Yeah, if somebody else had grabbed the role in the meantime, it would offer them another role. But really the idea is just to lure them into the website and get them making more active use of its capabilities. But probably the most powerful thing that I have added in this version is some capability to really reorganize the agenda without wading into a lot of the details of WordPress. So I don't know if I, at the beginning of this, explained the context, but for several years I've been working on something called the WordPress for Toastmasters project that allows you to use the world's most popular web publishing platform to organize the marketing content of your website. And WordPress is great for writing blogs and customizing your homepage. I have also been trying to train people to go into the WordPress editor and edit their agendas. So this is kind of, I can admit it now that I have an alternative. This is kind of a kludge. Kludge is an engineering term that Jim may be familiar with. It's a workaround. It's a way of making something work that really shouldn't work. But each of the roles on our agenda is represented as a content block in this document, the same as I can add an image or a heading or a paragraph. I can add a Toastmasters role. And if I want to add another one, I click here. And part of the confusion actually is one of the reasons it's been difficult to train people on this is they get distracted by all these other things that they're being offered. To add an image or a video or whatever, things that aren't as necessary to organizing a Toastmasters meeting. Whereas here I can go into this tab called Organize. And if I want to add a new role to the agenda, so maybe this club hasn't had a humorist before, and we're going to add a humorist. So I say I want to add a role, and there were only a few choices. There was a role, or there were a couple of different kinds of notes. I can call it the humorist, I can call it the joke meister. A lot of people have this on their agenda. They call it all sorts of different things. I saved that. And then if I went back to the sign up form, I should see joke meister is a role that somebody can take. So it's making it a lot easier, I hope, to train people on how to use this by giving them an agenda organizing mechanism that is just focused on Toastmasters stuff. Now, also, if I want to rearrange things, see, I already did have a humorist in here, but maybe the joke meister tells a bad joke, and then, so that we'll put them before the humorist who can tell a real joke. So I can drag and drop to move things around. It didn't put it in quite the right place, but I can use these little up-down arrows too. And behind the scenes, what this is doing actually is rewriting this document. So if I were to reload this, I should see Joke Meister show up on here someplace too. There it is. But I'm allowing them to edit the document, work with the same content while working within a framework that is much more specific to Toastmasters. This required a ton of work. I've been learning technologies that were invented by Facebook to make more interactive user interfaces, and the drag and drop feature actually comes from Trello, the project management tool that some of you may have used on the web. It allows you to kind of represent whatever you're organizing as a bunch of little project cards, and you can drag them from spot to spot. So I'm using React, beautiful DND for drag and drop, although my friend from Dungeons and Toast, I think, thinks it must be the other kind of DND. But at any rate, there's tools also if I want to add a note to my agenda. So this is a new agenda note. Agenda note is usually something like a 5-minute break. So here is the portion of the meeting where we take a 5-minute break. And I can allow 5 minutes for that activity. And if I scroll down here, if you look at the next block of time, you will see that it actually changes when I change this. We should see, yes, that the next role, the start time actually changes when I change the amount of time allowed for this one. So there is a lot of power here, but also hopefully some simplicity. So I put this down as the managing change speech, because one of the things I have had to learn along the way is that it does throw people when they've gotten used to doing it one way, and they got used to the idea that there would be an edit button or link and a suggest button or link. They actually got used to doing it that way, and I'm trying to say that this is so much better. But I also, if I can just give them the link that they're used to in the spot where they're used to finding it, that's also a good thing. So edit and suggest are in here as buttons, but you can also move into the edit mode from the buttons along the bottom. And then from here, you can assign other people to roles. If you've got a phone call or a text message or something saying that Abe can't make it and this other person will take over, you can switch these things around. With that, I'd like to break and see if there are, in fact, any questions. I was hoping to get some WordPress for Toastmasters people to show up tonight, but I don't seem to necessarily have, unless Johnny Randolph got that particular email. I think I'm striking out there.
I have a question if I can, David.
Yes, sir.
From a user experience point of view, does it sometimes make more sense to just throw out the baby with the bathwater and start again from scratch? It seems to me that you are trying to make this as easy as possible, but you're trying to retrofit everything back into it so that we don't get lost. I'm just wondering, sometimes is it better to just say, nah, that was a great project, but let's do something completely different?
Well, in some ways I'm doing that, Graham, because I've throwing out an awful lot of work that I've done in the past to make the existing agenda snazzier and more responsive and allow you to, am I out of my 2 minutes for Q&A as well, Sonny?
You know what? I'm sorry. Nobody told me in advance that I have a system. You are good for 1 minute.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm tossing out a lot of work that I've done in the past to sort of incrementally make things better. This is really a complete overhaul, and then I'm having to go back and sort of add things back in. For example, somebody pointed out to me when I turned this on for my home club that they'd gotten used to having that button that they could click to say, I'm going to be absent for the next meeting. And that had disappeared because I'd kind of forgotten that needed to be there too. And so now it's back. So, but I came a ton of really tough, at least tough for me, technical challenges over the last month. Now I feel like I'm down to the finishing touches part of refining it, making it better, and hopefully making sure that people will agree that it really is an improvement.